So, namaste and greetings to everyone. I wish to express gratitude to each one of you for being with us today from various corners of the globe. As a special thank you, which goes to all our esteemed speakers who are joining us today. My name is Suraj Amin. I'm part of the employee engagement team here at 3i Infotech, and I'll be your host for today. Beginning with Mr. Nilesh Gupta, he is the Chief Cloud Officer, Cloud and Edge Services, 3i Infotech, with more than 2 decades of global entrepreneurial experience as a sales leader and head of business development in IT, IMS services, solution selling that includes cloud enablement, advisory services, and infrastructure management services in a global delivery model. We also have Mr. Sax Krishna. He is the Chief Operating Officer, Digital and Next Gen Business at 3i Infotech. He has more than 30 years of experience in digital and business transformation. As COO, he excels in launching new businesses and possesses expertise in identifying inflection points and advising CXOs. His career still stints at HCL, Tech Mahindra, Aditya Birla Minax, and Atos, showcasing his strategic planning and cross-functional management skills. So welcoming Sax Krishna as well. We also have Mr. Varun Parekh. He is a senior manager at 3i Infotech. He, adding to his accolades, Mr. Varun holds major certifications and business accreditations, including Fortinet, Beyond Trust, and Imperva, among others, underscoring his commitment to staying at the forefront of industry standards and best practices. As a senior manager at handling cybersecurity at 3i Infotech, he oversees the security operations and strategy for the company and its clients. Also welcoming Mr. Saurabh Sachin. He is the CEO of Claim Zippy. He is an early adopter of emerging technologies. His trailblazing career is both empowering and an inspiration to many. Everyone would be aware about Flipkart Marketplace, right? So he's the creator. He is a founder of Claim Zippy, a successful serial entrepreneur, and an alumnus of IIT Mumbai, India. He's currently based out of UAE, Dubai. So welcome, Saurabh. Glad to have you with us. We also have Dorababu Khetri. He's Director of Enterprise Applications at Miral. He has 18 years of experience in project management, business analysis, application development, implementations, upgrades, integrations with third-party systems, support projects. So he has a wealth of experience in technology and transformation. So in all, if I had to say, we have the right people to talk about today's topic on, digital fortress and if we talk about cyber security, right? So welcoming each one of you with us today. As we move ahead, before we start with, addressing by our keynote speaker, there is a small poll to understand and gauge the opinion of our audience here who have gathered. So this quick poll will appear to you as a pop-up on the screen, and I would request you all to choose your answer, out of the four options given. The question is, which cybersecurity threat vector concerns you the most? So you can speak from, you can, choose your option based on your experience or your thoughts of which of these cybersecurity threat you feel that concerns you the most. Phishing attacks, ransomware, insider threats, DDoS attacks. All right, so we see that we have received a maximum response talking about ransomware. Okay, so money is very important, guys. It's pretty clear, and yes, even if we look at the study, it also highlights ransomware as the maximum, amount of threats that are received, or it's more risky, right? So thank you for sharing. You can continue sharing your votes over there. And I hope that today's session helps everyone in their respective fields and get some perspective on this topic. Let's hear further from our keynote speaker, Mr. Nilesh, who will help us set the context for today. Mr. Varun Parikh, followed by his keynote address to enlighten on digital fortress, protecting your business with cyber essentials. So over to you, Nilesh.
Thank you, Suraj, and welcome everyone for this session of Digital Fortress, protecting your business with cyber essentials. A very important topic as we speak as of today. And I also welcome my co-panelist, Saurav Dorebabu and Sax, to be part of this panel with you, and it's an honor to be part of this panel again with you, Sax. Just to set the context, I know everybody understands what cybersecurity is, but more importantly, in today's scenario, how important cybersecurity is in the journey of where we are as of today. I think if we take the journey of a cybersecurity adoption across the regions, I think it's been marked by various milestones and challenges, reflecting various regions, typically evolving technological landscape, increasing cyber threats, and so on and so forth. And I still remember in the early 2000s, where cybersecurity specifically was relatively in a nascent stage with limited awareness and investment in cyber defenses. The various governments, organizations focus primarily on basic security measures such as antivirus software and a perimeter firewalls to protect against the common threats as well. But over a period of time, the proliferation of internet came into being, the connectivity became even more better, the bandwidth increased, and so on and so forth. The transformation also took various initiatives from that perspective as well. But due to which there were also tensions from a geopolitical perspective, which also contributed a major increase in cyber threats across the regions as well. We have seen in the past 15 odd years the various high-profile cyber attacks targeting specific governments, agencies, critical infrastructures, specific financial institutions that highlighted the various regions' vulnerability to cyber attacks as well. But nevertheless, as we speak, as we move on, we need to do business. Various government initiatives and regulations came into being. They recognized the various importance of cybersecurity. Governments began to prioritize cybersecurity as a national security and became economic imperative from that perspective as well. Overall, I believe that where we are as of today, we have done good, but not good enough in terms of how do we adopt cybersecurity specifically. But there is a continuous commitment from various enterprises as we speak today. We need to build even a better resilient cyber defenses, fostering innovations across with the various AI, ML kind of technologies putting in play. We'll see some of the things which we see as we forward. But more importantly is to collaborate very closely internally within the organization, also with the external agencies, partners to address these cyber challenges across the globe as well. So with that, I would request Mr. Varun to come on board to just to walk you across what has been happening in the cybersecurity world in specifically and how we as 3i cater to it while working with some of the customers as we speak as of today. Over to you, Varun.
Yeah, thank you, Nilesh. Thank you, Suraj. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So before we start, I just want to take you through what is cybersecurity and what is the importance of cybersecurity, right? And the poll that was run, it was clearly more towards the ransomware, right? So clearly our objectives are, we want to protect financial loss, we want to protect intellectual property, data loss, reputation damage. That is the worst thing that could happen, right? And how and what we are protecting, we're protecting our computers, our edge devices, our network, our servers, all the digital information that we have. We're protecting that from the unauthorized access, from the theft, and from the disruption. And how we are protecting, we're using people, process, and technology, right? So that is what this slide is all about. Can you go to next, please? Right. Now, Nilesh, you also brought a really good point where, you said that the cybersecurity has really evolved, right? And I can relate that to this one where, we started our journey as something very small as an antivirus. Then the firewalls were invented. Then suddenly we started getting phished and spam emails. So the email protection was invented. Then the cloud came in. So cloud security solutions were invented. But if you look at the overall picture, these are all overlapping tools. They still leave a lot of blind spots. And all of these products, they all work as point products. They all work in silos. They do not talk to each other. And now we're getting in such a phase where we want the products to talk to each other, right? So if something happens on my endpoint, then my firewall should automatically block me. It should automatically isolate. And I don't have to do the manual task. And overall, where this leads to is you are actually maintaining 5 or 6 different softwares or hardwares and their subscriptions. So it gets into a lot of increased costs and operational overhead. Next slide, please. This is a very important one, and if you look at the actual journey, I have mapped that in the bar at the bottom. So the bar at the bottom is first the organization thinks that I want to secure myself, then they start defending themselves, then they start containing, then they start managing, and now we get into that proactive phase where we want to anticipate the threat before the threat comes in. But in reality, if you look at the organizations are currently only at secure, defend, and contain because cybersecurity is not a full-time job for all these organizations, right? And that is where cybersecurity companies like us come into picture and help them out. So in the anticipate, what we do is we do proactive monitoring, we do the proactive security posture improvement, we help with security automation, we can provide the threat intelligence, we can also go as far as doing an incident response, and we can do a 24 cross 7 operations management. Next slide, please. So here are some facts and figures that I could get for the particular region. And the names are not, all the names are well known, right? So the biggest oil manufacturer, oil producer, right? They were once hit by a malware which propagated everywhere and it caused widespread disruption. Now, this disruption was in terms of time, and time is money. So every hour the disruption goes on, they are losing money, right? Then a national bank is the data is leaked and the customer financial information of the thousands of customers information is leaked, right? And that is available somewhere on the dark web. Then a nation's oil ministry was hit by a cyber attack. Again, the operations were disrupted, right? And if you look at the stats below, uh, you can see almost 3 out of 4 people, IT leaders, they think that the external hacking and malware is the biggest threat to us. If you look at the other stat, 1 out of 2 CIOs think that we lack the expertise to deal with the advanced threat. We might deal with something which is very common, comes very often, but if something is really targeted, then 1 out of 2 think that it is a big challenge, right? So that if the stats are quite alarming actually if you look at. Can we go next, please?
Yeah, just to add there, I think one of the important aspect, Varun, if I just go back in time, I'm sure, some of the panelists will also agree with me is that in the year 2016, 17, and 18, I think these were the 3 prominent years when we saw Shamoon 2 come out, when we saw WannaCry ransomware, where it was introduced for the first time globally, right? We saw oil rig attacks come out from an APT 34 perspective. And then so on, so we saw some of the SolarWinds supply chain attack came out, specifically targeting specific industry verticals, be it BFSI, oil and gas, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the things where today is becoming more and more intelligent, where the hackers are using multiple technologies from a tools perspective. While we have an proactive AI tools to stop predictive threats from the perspective, they also have similar kind of tools to actually go and attack to do similar kind of things as well. So it is becoming a more and more, proactive from their side as well. But at the same time, how do we move from alert to action is more important from that perspective. So how do we gap that alert to logic is the very important. Alert to action logic is very important at this point of time.
Absolutely, Nilesh, 100% agree with you. So this here, I have put all the threats and challenges together. And if you look at, the threats are ever increasing. Like I've numbered them from 1 to 9, the top 9 threats here, ransomware attacks, phishing attacks, right? Then the growth of, the cyber attacks have been on increase. External cloud accounts, 605% increase. So, there is no single place which is not under attack or which is not under stress. Wherever your data lies digitally, be it on a mobile phone or be it on the cloud, it can be susceptible to attacks. Can we go to next, please? So what I want to do, and what I want to give the message here is, this is an ever evolving question. I want to put this as a circle of influence here. And if you ask yourself, what would you do if you face a ransomware attack at 2 a.m. on Sunday? And you'll probably come up with some incident plan, right? You will have to identify all your risk. But again, after you have identified your risk and you ask this question again, then your risk will become even higher, right? You might have a complete remote workforce, and when you think of what would happen if an incident happens to me on a weekend at 2 a.m. in the morning, you might want to have all your data consolidated in one place. But if we go by the stats and if we look at the global, where the data is, many CIOs and many CXOs are still unsure of where exactly their data resides. So we want to protect the data, but our data is everywhere. And this is the post-COVID, post-COVID, what has happened is this transformation has come in. Previously there used to be data centers and users used to be at the center and data used to be everywhere. Now data is everywhere, users are also everywhere. So, that boundary or the perimeter of the organization was actually breached when people started working remotely. Next, please. So here I want to show where and how 3i can actually help. So we've bucketed our managed services into 5 different buckets here. If we look at the cybersecurity as a services, we do SIM as a service, SOC as a service, and then we extend our SOC. So whatever alerts or whatever cases we see, we extend that into managed detection and response. So what we do is once we find an alert, we can give a full actionable guidance to the customer saying, this is what was found and these are the next steps and these are our recommendations. Or the other way we can go about it is if we do the full managed services, the full managed detection and response for you, then what we can do is we'll fix the alert. You can be sleeping on a Sunday night and we'll let you know that this is what we found and this is what has been fixed and this is what we did, right? If we go into the next bucket, security testing, we do the full vulnerability assessment and penetration testing of network and the network devices, your website or your web application, your mobile application. Now, certain customers, always come to me and say that, why should we do a VAPT of a database? It is not exposed over the internet, right? But all your applications are using APIs, right? So we also go into that level where we can do the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing of APIs as well as IoT devices. And last but not the least, on the security testing, we can also go to that level where we can do the source code analysis. So we can actually check the source code of your application or your web page, and we can see whether the source code itself has a bug or it itself is vulnerable. So that is our expertise on the security testing. Coming to the next bucket, GRC, we do the full gap assessment and the risk assessment. So in the GRC, what we do is we find out what the gaps in your organization are, whether there is whether any policy is not matching as per the best practice, whether there is the risk is there and you don't know how much risk it is, then we can map that risk to the risk meter. And once we find all of this, again, we can do that managed service and we can do the implementation for you. So once we found the gaps, we know that our gaps are here. We can go ahead and we can implement those gaps and we can fill those gaps for you. Then on an ongoing basis, we can also do the full awareness and the training for the entire organization. And we want to hold hand in hand and we can do the full-time security consultation for you. So what we do is once we've identified the gaps, we've fixed everything. Now on a regular basis, we have a quarterly or a monthly or a 6-monthly meeting. And there we are doing the security consultation for you just to ensure that the gap has not widened. the gap is becoming lesser and lesser, and the security posture of the organization is going better and better. And lastly, we can also take that into the business continuity planning as well. Coming to the next bucket of audit and assurance, what we do in audit and assurance, it is a full technical evaluation of whatever security control you have. So it could be a firewall, EDR endpoint, or your cloud, or your network, right? So we can go into that level of detail where we can look at what policies are applied, what websites are allowed, what category is allowed, what should not be allowed, right? And we can do the full audit and assurance as per the best practices and as per the compliance as well. So if a customer requires a particular compliance, then we can check whether your firewall or the policies that you've applied are as per that particular compliance requirement or not. In the last bucket, the vCISO, we also provide a virtual CISO type of service. So what we do is for organizations who cannot have a dedicated CISO, right? We can do all the strategy development and all the planning, all the incident response, the disaster recovery, and a full-time consultation. So basically, if the organization doesn't know where they are going, we can help them reduce the cybersecurity gap. We can ensure that the security posture goes up and up, the security posture is enhanced. And for that, our CISO is going to be helping you out to make sure that we have the right strategies in place. They can also give you recommendations that we can implement this particular technology or we can implement this particular platform. So that is what we do on the vCISO side. Next, please. Last but not the least, this is our product. And what we do is we replace all of the traditional components that are there currently in a network or in an organization with one security control. And we provide the inside out security with the full visibility. So this is a holistic solution with zero trust. It is cloud native. It was built in the cloud. It is consumed in the cloud, and it is the network built on the 5G technology. What it does, it gives you the ease of managing. So your user could be roaming, your device could be anywhere, anybody could be anywhere. Security follows the user instead of user following the security. That's what we do with our product called Neure Edge. Over to you, back to you, Nilesh.
Yeah, thanks, Varun. In fact, this is an important slide because, like I mentioned earlier, the threat has become very intelligent. The hackers have become very intelligent, and the first slide that we spoke about, all these are great companies, great products. Once upon a time, they continue to be for certain aspects as well from a certain use case perspective. But if you talk about user being anywhere, data being anywhere, you want to integrate those solutions into a single unified solution. I think this is a product that it's moving into, and I think based on our discussions with various prospects and customers, I think this is the future. I would say there's a future of cybersecurity from a transformation journey perspective.
Wonderful.
And thanks,
So
Varun.
thanks
Over to
a
you,
lot.
Suraj.
Thank you. Thanks, Nilesh, and thanks, Varun, for taking us through this. Definitely quite informative and a lot of insights that brings us. Um, to take this ahead, I would like to, put one more poll for you all to answer, right? Despite of having awareness, a lot of times it happens that there are certain reasons why we are not able to bring this into implementation. So this question is about understanding what is the biggest barrier to implementing robust cybersecurity measures in organizations. Is it budget constraints? Is it lack of skilled personnel, lack of management support, or complexity of technology? So you'll be able to see the poll on your screen. And yeah, here it is. So you can share your thoughts on what you feel is the biggest barrier to implementing robust cybersecurity measures in organizations. All right, so while you're answering, you will also be able to see the responses that we are receiving. So definitely, depending on various criteria, people might have different barriers that they're facing, right? So taking the conversation ahead, I believe that it's turned out to be very enriching through the keynote speakers. So Varun has laid the path perfectly for this, the next part of the session today, which is a fireside chat session. And with the collective wisdom and experience we have on the panel today, I'm sure that we will have a very enriching and insightful conversation with all four of them. So, on that note, I would like to bring your attention to this dilemma that we have with the security today, as we could see also from the poll responses. The digital footprint of the organization is ever expanding. The threat landscape is ever evolving. The attack surface is getting wider every day, right? So we would like to understand this through the conversation to hear from these experts on what are the practical and pragmatic approach that we can take on these scenarios, right? To begin with, the first question goes to Mr. Nilesh Gupta. As we know that we are expecting around 80% of the UAE's businesses to migrate to clouds by 2025. So, what are the specific measures, as per your recommendation, for the businesses to stay ahead of cyber threats while we're also able to leverage the benefits of the cloud adaptation?
No, no, absolutely, Suraj. I think it's not just UAE, but it also various regions across the globe. And I believe that first step towards your transformation journey is by adopting cloud and taking your data away from your centralized core closed doors of your inside data center, inside your office premises to anywhere and everywhere. That's where you actually able to reap the benefits of transformation, benefits of like we saw Flipkart of the world's coming on. How do you analyze the data from a user spend and user experience perspective as well, right? So this is a very important aspect of that perspective as well. But at the same time, when you're moving away from your core data center or inside data center to an external world, it is very important in terms of how you handle cyber threats while leveraging the benefits of cloud as well. There are various points depending on the kind of verticals that you're in, the kind of regions that you're in, the kind of technologies that you use. But at the bare minimum, I think some of the areas which we need to look at is to have a comprehensive cybersecurity or a security strategy as a whole, right? That addresses the various unique challenges posted by transformation journey by adopting cloud as a whole. I think the data encryption, identity, and access management is one of the core aspects when I tell my customers some of the areas that need to adopt to move on to the cloud. Network security, endpoint security, like Varun spoke about in terms of how you do threat detection and responses are actually one of the core areas when you look into the comprehensive security strategy as a perspective as well. Another area is that as native as you go from a cloud technology that you adopt, it also becomes an important aspect of how do you take the cloud security solutions as a whole as well, not only the endpoint or the firewalls and so on and so forth, but how do you actually adapt the native solutions, native cybersecurity as low as the API interface that happens as well, right? So we need to invest in those cloud native security solutions like CASBs that we speak about. We talk about cloud workload production platforms that we speak about as we speak, cloud posture management, security posture management that we speak about, and so on and so forth. That has to be a continuous process as well. More importantly than anything else is also the awareness and training to the employees that access the applications, that access the developers who access the codes, the admin teams that actually support the management of those infrastructure and underlying applications and in network as well. How do you access? Where do you access from? So those awareness is also important because the most common threat that happens or hack happens is via people. That's the most common threat that happens. I would say at least 75 to 80% of the threat happens where you have threats coming in from the employees itself. And then I can keep going: data encryption, multi-factor authentication, continuous monitoring, threat detection. You need to, if as complicated as your environment is, as you believe that is important, that even if it goes down for a few minutes, you lose your company productivity, financial loss, etc., etc. You need to have a 24/7 monitoring systems in place requires people to do that as well proactively and so on, so that you, like I said earlier, it's all about the alert and action. How the incident response happens is very important, right? And that has to be bridged over a period of time. And when you start thinking about that proactively, you think about the tools, you think about the people behind who are setting the tools to analyze the kind of alerts, logs that are coming in, and what corrective measures you take it. That's the important aspect of the whole journey as well.
Definitely very well said. So awareness definitely plays a very vital role, and each one of us play that, other stakeholders in that. So Nilesh, if we look at way ahead in the coming years, how would you say you anticipate the intersection of AI, cloud computing, cybersecurity, evolving?
No, absolutely. I think one of the areas which the new age product is also, it's a built-in AI platform that accesses the predictiveness of the threat coming in, analyzes the various internet connectivity that is happening, network coming in, and so on and so forth, traffic coming in, so on and so forth. But important aspect of the intersection of AI into cloud computing and cybersecurity is, I think it's going to evolve significantly in the coming years, if not already being evolved from that perspective, which is going to be driven by those technology commandments that we speak about, with increasing of the threats that is coming in from different sizes and shapes and forms from a technology perspective as well. And I also believe that while it will play a central role, but enhancing the cloud environments will become even more sophisticated in terms of detecting those responses automatically, detecting those anomalies on the real time with the proactiveness and mitigating with a faster incident response will be a very handy tool from an AI perspective as well. We have seen various AI platforms as of today, which is integrated with Security Operations Center from an automation perspective as well. This also play a very important role in terms of vulnerability management, where organization leverage AI-driven orchestration in terms of automating those various tools, technologies to bring an overall efficiency in terms of the various security processes, reduce malware intervention, and improve an overall productivity and efficiency from an uptime perspective as well. And more importantly, not the least, I would say there are multiple points, but how do you preserve your privacy in your data analysis also will play an important role from that perspective. How AI-powered privacy enhancing technologies will also play an important role in terms of securing multi-party computations, where it's not just the customer and the partner from an MSP that provides, but there are multiple parties involved from the application perspective as well, from a hosting the data center perspective. Individual privacy versus complying with the various regulatory and protection regulations will also become an important aspect as well. So these are some of the areas which I feel it will be built in automatically with the AI platforms, where today may not be there, but maybe in a couple of years with the surgence of the technology solutions, algorithms, I think it's going to be humongous in terms of how petabytes of data will be analyzed by these platforms. And I think it will be a fantastic place to be in actually.
Wonderful. We'll be looking forward to those times when we get to that level. So thanks a lot, Nilesh, for sharing that. Next, I would like to move to Mr. Dorababu K3. He is the Director of Enterprise Applications at Mural. So welcome, Dorababu.
Thank you so much.
All right. So if we talk about the increasing sophistication of cyber threats, so as a director of Oracle Enterprise Applications here, so what precautions would you say you have taken to ensure the security of your enterprise solutions?
That was a great question, Solas. First of all, let me thanks to the Infotech and the co-partners of this program. I really appreciate your energy working on cybersecurity. It is the most demanding skill that is required for the organization like us and across the many organizations in UAE. And most of the time, we hear a lot of news across reading the articles that help us to understand how severely an organization like us are getting impacted with the cybersecurity, lack of cybersecurity measurements. Correct? Now, coming back to the application side, I head the enterprise applications across the Mural Group. Mural Group is a big company in terms of itself, okay, with the complement of many different business line of businesses. Now, when it comes to the application side, we focus primarily on the awareness and especially the team that is being being deployed to develop the applications. The focus is to get trained on cybersecurity essentials guides, and we do training to ensure this. All my team members has been aware of the what's happening around the globe and the cybersecurity. And also we as a company, we prefer to have any solutions, any application on the cloud first. That being said, the cloud first organization is the primary motive for us to do the any enhancement or development, any application that we buy. And we also ensure this because of the data residency as UAE, we are part of UAE and a government entity. The data residency UAE is must for us now. So we ensure this any application which is going to be our for technology space want to have UAE data center. In addition to this, as Nilesh rightly mentioned about the multi-factor authentication SSO. So what we do, we enable the Microsoft AD, Azure AD with all my applications. It means that any employees are onboarding till offboarding state. Okay, we ensure this employee being logged into the one username password through which we can control the offboarding of the employees. And also at times we ensure this like any data being transferred to the Oracle or any ERP system that we have to the bank for any making payments to the suppliers or employees are probably encrypted with the data being transferred. Likewise, okay, in addition to the internal external audits, we rigorously follow the CISO guidelines from the enforced by the Abu Dhabi government, which which saves us from the vulnerable areas like application side as well as the infrastructure side.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for sharing that, Dhruv Babu. When we talk about working, like you spoke about the internal employees, we also have to associate with, multiple vendors. And in that way, that's where, internal security becomes very crucial. So could you elaborate on how, Miral's approach to vendor risk management, and how do you ensure third-party vendors meet that stringent cybersecurity standards?
Great question again. I think coming back to the vendors, we don't treat them as vendor, we treat them as partners, technology partners. So recently we had engagement with 3Infotech. They have been predominantly doing the great job, which I would say appreciate the team of the 3Infotech on that space. And while we start onboarding of any partner, okay, by securing the proper NDA, proper contractual obligations, okay, in each and every contract, we make sure the vendor has obliged to follow certain protocols in terms of securing my data, securing the process in terms of onboarding any employees. What happens now, some vendors will join and they onboard the contractors, small, tiny players into the market, okay, through the project through subcontractors sometimes, okay, they don't follow the certain guidelines of how the data is being protected, especially the customer data while working on the supply side. Whereas in case of 3Infotech, that their contract and their guidelines are very much detailed enough for us to understand. We don't have any compliance issue. That's so far we have received from the legal team, especially when working with the 3Infotech contracts. This is one aspect. And second aspect, we also let's say there is some application has to be operated from offshore, okay. So we enable them VPN or PAM, okay. It's basically the private privileged access management application through which we monitor them, what is the being accessed and how they're being accessed the application, okay, what kind of operations are being added by the end users, I mean, our technical resources. In addition to this, we also regularly monitor the health check of the vendor contracts, okay, and resources. If any resources who been joined with us as part of the 3Infotech or any vendor for the say, is still continuing or not. So what happens now? Most of the energy that we start at the project, we onboard so many resources because of the urgency of the project. But at sometimes the resources may leave the organizations, maybe leave the project, but we don't know who is working right now, right? So this regular health checks help us to understand whether the resources who have been committed to the project are still continuing. If so, well and good. If not, we will ensure the security, the measurements are taken to offboard the resources and take out the access controls. Yeah. So likewise, We do the regular health check on the contracts, and regularly ensure this. My legal team is, my security team is being follow the certain protocols to onboarding the vendors like you. Yeah. So that's all we do as at this moment, Suraj.
Wonderful. Definitely, that's a necessity these days to follow, have certain processes in place, policies in place. That definitely helps. So thanks for sharing that, Dura Babu. Now, moving to our next panelist, Mr. Saurabh Sachin, who is the founder of Claim Zippy. So welcome once again. And yeah, the question is, looking at how you are engineering director overseeing product development in the past. So how do you prioritize cyber security if we look at the software development life cycle, and what measures are in place to embed security best practices? So when we look at the initial stages of the product design. Saurabh will have to
Am I?
Yeah, yes, you're audible.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, thank you for organizing this event, which is so relevant for today's times. And thanks for having me here. So I have been lucky to have run companies with tens of thousands of employees and also companies with just 10 employees. So I've seen the extremes, of what kind of sensitization is required, what kind of budget can be allocated, what kind of structures can be put in place, what kind of framework adherence can be enforced. So first of all, right at the top, I always look at things in two different buckets. One, which is technically unauthorized access, and second is technically authorized access. Now, what I mean by these is that the technically unauthorized access are the ones where, let's say, somebody is trying to do accessing a machine which is behind certain firewalls by penetrating through it and probably accessing some standard ports, running some exploits, doing buffer overflow, etc. All of those techniques. That's one. And the other one, which is technically authorized access. What it means is that somebody gets access to my username password and goes and nicely, proudly connects to the system and feeds in my username password. There's nothing the system can do about it. System sees it as me. So that's technically authorized access, though legally it's still unauthorized because I never allow the person to have that access. So now if you see, as things are progressing, both types of attacks are increasing. Needless to say, the size of transactions are changing, the stakes are changing, and so is the interest from the wider community who wants to take the shortcut of making money like this, right? So the number of attacks are certainly exponentially increasing, but if you see the market share, or rather the share of which one is increasing faster, is it the authorized or the unauthorized? Technically authorized, technically unauthorized. So technically unauthorized ones, which is rising way faster, because with a lot of good practices in place, the technically unauthorized ones are getting plugged pretty fast. But somehow this one gets a miss. So now relating back to my times at larger organizations, how we solved the first part, which is technically unauthorized access, was that putting CI/CD and CO pipelines, where continually we were having these tests which were cybersecurity related, right there when we were before deployment. Now, cybersecurity is not about a one-time certification. Yeah, it's a continual practice, because it's a game where people are chasing each other, and not people actually. It's more about you can never say that I'm secure. You can always say how secure. Right? So which means that against how many different vulnerabilities known so far, we are protected, right? So now for that, these measures certainly help a lot. It's a continual practice. But then the other kind, which is the technically authorized access, for example, with stolen credentials or with hijacked session, because I clicked on some email incorrectly, and the server just allowed the third-party cookies to get moved because of some wrong configuration. Now, for that one, the critical part is employee sensitivity. And other distinguished members in this panel, they've also brought up this point. But we cannot highlight enough on this particular topic that employee sensitization is critical. So, yeah, I think do integrating it into CI/CD pipeline to make sure that we plug the technically unauthorized access, and making sure that employee sensitization is in place to protect us against technically unauthorized. It's a very interesting topic. I will go on and on, but I will stop here for other questions, and happy to elaborate further if time permits.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Saurabh, for sharing that. So, in the similar context, but from a different angle, if we have to understand, since you are a startup founder as well, so how would you prioritize the cybersecurity amidst competing business objectives, right? And what steps have you taken to instill a culture of security awareness and compliance? Because you spoke about certain things which has to be brought in practice. You have to do it on a regular basis.
Absolutely right. Again, another good question. So, this is very close to my heart because when you're running a startup, you have to make sure that the resources are utilized in the most optimal way, most frugal way. So in a startup, it's hard to have a large team which is looking at various aspects of cybersecurity. You'll probably have a small team, which is looking into various aspects of security. So you need more of generalists than specialists. Also, another thing that helps is having a good area of external vendors who can provide their services on demand. And in case of startups, the practice, the whole sensitization, that becomes even more important, because now every code that is flowing into the system or that is getting compiled should go through that careful scanning by the individual's own practices, that they're not leaving anything to chance. So they're not leaving anything where any known vulnerabilities are just exposed. So a few things that I have seen which have helped me in my ventures is that making sure that it's a company culture, even at a startup, it's a company culture to make sure that they move to the latest available LTS versions of different applications or different compilers or binaries, etc. Now this usually people have inertia that, okay, now I've done the code, it's all running with the clients. Why should I do those changes, which again require a lot of efforts, yielding no significant revenue, incremental revenue? But it becomes important because it comes back biting us hard when we are lagging behind significantly enough, and then there are a lot of security vulnerabilities which become a common threat. So unfortunate enough, the way we are able to use security analysis tools or security scanning tools where thousands and thousands of exploits can be checked, similar are the tools for attackers, where just pressing a few buttons, they can actually apply tons and tons of threats. It's the same tool which is being used from the other side of the table. So it gets very important for us to always keep in mind. And once again, employee sensitization is the key. Employee sensitivity towards PII data, towards making sure that they do not do any password sharing. That's another very important thing that I have seen among employees, that password sharing is usually not seen as a large offense. Now, wherever I have operated, I made it a fireable offense. Fireable offense, okay? Password sharing. And password sharing was fireable offense, not just sharing, also receiving it. Because there were situations where there were employees, they just used and logged in with somebody else's credentials. And they said, no, not my fault. He gave me, doesn't matter. Yeah, you're receiving it, you're using not your credentials. It's a problem. Then there were some other very important, or rather very simple things, but they helped us in long term a lot. For example, no faceless accounts. It has to be, a faithful account with which you have to access. For example, no account like, okay, admin at something. No, it'll be Saurabh at something, and I would have admin privileges. And I'll always operate with lowest possible privileges to execute my tasks. So these are small things, but you can compile a whole nice SOP out of it, and they become very helpful in making sure that we curb down from cyber attacks from happening. Okay, I'll stop here for subsequent questions.
Thank you for sharing that. It's always better safe than sorry kind of a situation. So it's definitely something which should be brought into practice. and
I'm
request
sorry.
you
I'm
follow.
sorry. I just gotta add one more thing. I'm sorry. I gotta add
Yeah,
one very
yeah,
critical
so.
thing. So why that password thing? It seems very simple. Like, what's the big deal? Password. Because the whole audit trails get spoiled. You lose once, you shouldn't lose the second time. Now, if there's an attack, and if the password is shared, then audit trails is nothing you can do about it. It all looks like the same. So that's why. Yeah, please continue. Sorry.
Okay, all right, wonderful. Thank you, Saurabh, for sharing that view with us. So next, I would like to move ahead with next panelist, Mr. Sax Krishna. He's the Chief Operating Officer at 3i Infotech. So, Sax, the question for you is, when we talk about the interconnected nature of today's business ecosystem, third-party vendors and supply chain partners, they pose, potential cybersecurity risks. So, what role will AI and threat intelligence play to establish a safer work environment?
Again, another great question. Can you guys hear me okay? Another great question. I think there are two parts of the question. Even before AI comes in, your first part of the question still remains relevant as to in the interconnected world, because what has digital transformation forced us to do is to collaborate a lot more across within intra and inter-tech systems. And that's because of collaboration with partners, like tech partners, supply chain partners. And so that obviously and naturally increases the points of failure or points of vulnerability, more than failure, points of vulnerability across the network, right? So that by itself is, I think, formidable challenge, which requires, again, people, process, and technology. To Saurav's earlier point, employee orientation, to a large extent in this case, even your partner orientation, right? Your supply chain partner orientation. That becomes equally important. So there's a lot that needs to happen even before AI starts playing a role. But there are areas, I think, which are more voluminous in nature, if you may, of transactions that need to be read. AI will I think, is a great application right there in terms of threat intelligence. To improve our ability, obviously, as these attacks keeps increasing, the number of infringements keeps increasing too. So I don't think just putting multiple tools and people, is going to break it. Is going to make it, because if you ask the business owner, right, the business owner always has a challenge. Maybe Saurav will answer this even better because he's running a startup. It always has this challenge of balancing, right, between the two. I mean, it's easy for a CISO to come and tell him that, hey, look, and all of us do that too, right? If you look at the chagrin of my own colleagues, if you look at the earlier presentation, we always start this with the like everything is doomsday, right? And unfortunately, that's a business we're in. We're to convince people to protect themselves. But so that kind of brings in the extra need for managing today's environment as a secured or a safe workplace. Now, on top of that comes AI, and I think some of the things that are happening in the AI space, including what happens in 3i, I think can be very easily adapted to providing this level of proactive intelligence, so that we can be better prepared and maybe reduce the number of instances, right? Because every now and then we see that we need to constantly keep ahead. It is a cop chase cop game, so you need to constantly keep ahead. So artificial intelligence can provide a great amount of impetus and a tailwind for you to get ahead with that battle.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sax, for providing that insight. And to also talk about, as a COO, how do you oversee the critical operations functions? And with the increasing frequency of sophistication of cyber threats, how do you prioritize cybersecurity investments and resource allocation to effectively protect the organization's assets and ensure resilience against the potential cyber attacks?
So, I mean, the situation that I'm running right now in 3i Infotech may be a little polarized to an IT services kind of business, because a lot of IT services business get driven by customers, requirements of cybersecurity, or customers' requirement of a security environment. So you automatically gear up to do that as a part of each individual engagement. Now, if you look at the support functions in 3i operations, Absolutely. We go through the same thing. We have a very regular threat assessment that goes on. We've obviously got our own tools in place, and there's a constant, and we also look at the process changes. And every process that we do, we try to induce the proactive understanding of what it could potentially impact from a threat perspective or from a threat vector perspective. So we we do all of that, right? Governance from top down, make sure that every delivery review, every review, business review that we do has a certain amount of importance given to the secure environment. Yeah. And last but not the least, going back to Saurav and borrowing from him, employee orientation. It's all about employee orientation at the end of the day. Password sharing, that when he said that, that did give me a chill or two, because yeah, we've seen that happening, right? So I think employee orientation, making internal audits more empowered, so that they can actually go find things that could be abnormal to the SOPs, and so that gets flagged more quickly from a business risk management perspective. So those are some of the things that we do, and I usually advise other people, other CXOs to do the same, because that's the only way we can keep ahead of the game.
Wonderful. I hear, the alignment of, awareness amongst the employees, joinees, to have them in that practice, so this is definitely something very important. And also what you shared about, the previous point on, when people get to see the real picture, because at this point in time, we might not be able to see what impact the risks might bring about. So definitely people need to bring up the awareness, the state of awareness, to be able to tackle with those scenarios. So with this, I'd like to go back to Saurav with a question on any experiences that you might have had on data breaches in the past that you would like to share, and how was your team able to successfully mitigate that incident? The mic, Saurav.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to share with the audience that Bollywood is yet to reach the impressive levels in portraying realistic cyber attacks, and Hollywood can totally mislead us. Okay, because the final root cause doesn't have like satellites involved or big dish antennas or fiber, capturing those things or guessing the password with one hand. No, the final root cause when you dig out is that some employee did and I pasted some buffer, like how you do copy paste, Control C, Control V, or Command C, Command V. So like that, there are certain services like Pastebin. It's meant for sharing the clipboard across devices. Now, an employee had just the final root cause after digging out everything was that an employee had pasted something which was an API single magic link, which could get into the system and bring about certain change. Now, from there, the token was stolen. Now, whose fault is it? It's obviously the employees, right? But, or maybe the sensitization department. But this is a real example that I'm telling you. There are some other examples where it starts with, let's say, some companies seeming to be security research company will call you, and essentially it's kind of a ransomware, but they're a little more graceful. They don't threaten you that I'm going to delete your data. But they say that we are a research company and we are analyzing this, and we have found and we have a copy of your data now. So now how would you like to deal with it? And then you have to negotiate with them and things like that. Now, the key point is that for any kind of incidents management, we always, I always try to break it into 4 parts. One is, DLCP, which is detect, localize, correct, and prevent. So we should not be jumping into the preventive step immediately. Okay, first we got to figure out where exactly the breach happened from, and this I'm telling you from the real experiences of how we managed those situations. So then we found out, and then you have to data, protect the privacy of the people who have trusted you with their data, and then later on think of the preventions. Now it should not stop there. What happens is, for the next cycle, how do you make sure that your detection itself is strong enough? So the first stage, which is the detect of DLCP framework. So detect itself becomes strong so that you know it before others get to know that there's a compromise. So yeah, I'll stop at this point.
All right. So you mentioned that first the priority should be detection and not prevention. So what happens in the scenario if someone directly moves to prevention stage? Saurabh, can you hear me?
Sorry, I'm suffering with some network challenge, but now I can hear you.
Yeah, so the question was, you mentioned that detection should be the first step, right? And not prevention. So what happens in case someone jumps into prevention stage directly? How does that affect?
I know. Okay, sorry, there's a minor correction over there. So what I mean
Uh-huh.
is that you do the correction first. There's a
Okay.
problem at hand. Okay? Like,
Mhm.
but if somebody is having flu, treat that flu. Give the vaccine later. That's prevention.
Okay, right.
First, you treat the flu. But the point is that to detect next time that flu has not aggravated so much that it becomes life-threatening, for that we need to do the detect part. So you do your detect, localize, correct, prevent, and after that, again, you make sure that your detection becomes stronger.
Okay.
So that next time you detect with lesser damage done. Yeah.
All right. Wonderful.
Yeah, just
Thank
to
you.
add to
Thanks a
that,
lot.
Suraj,
Yeah.
I think, and I think it's well said from Saurabh's perspective, but I think the choice between detection and prevention specifically depends on various factors, right? Including the threat landscape, the organization risk tolerance, like startup versus 10,000 employee size company, the various regulatory requirements, and what are the various available resources that you are actually using to manage from a critical cybersecurity strategy perspective, right? So it depends on all the things, whether you want to go from a detect and then go and stop spreading across, or do you want to prevent it by bringing certain AI platform tools, proactive tools, etc., etc. So it depends on the nature of the business as well.
All right. So you have your mitigation contingency plans in place to tackle with those risks, which might, want to foresee. So thanks a lot, Nilesh, and thanks, Saurabh, for sharing that, and also Sax and Dora Babu for your insights. Due to paucity of time, we would like to stop. We would not like to stop here, but then we have certain restrictions of time, right? So we would move ahead to the question and answer section. I guess there are a few questions already come from our audience. Let me pull it up. All right. So one question here is, what type of VAPT report do you give for IoT and API testing? And is all the VAPT based on tools only? So anyone who would like to take this up? I guess Varun has already answered the question in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, our VAPT is a comprehensive exercise, and we don't rely on tools alone, right? You have to have the human to also check whether this vulnerability is really needed and really useful or not. And on the report side, we find the vulnerability, we penetrate it, we provide the full proof of concept that we penetrated this particular vulnerability, and we also give the remediation guidelines. So it's a detailed report giving you the full insight on what are your next steps as well.
All right. Thank you for sharing the answer. There's one more question about what are the common cyber risks and threats associated with SaaS dev company?
I think Saurabh would be the right person to answer that, but I think I answered that in the chat as well.
Sure.
I think Saurabh, you would like to go for it?
Yeah, sure. So what happens is when you have a SaaS company, then essentially your data is being processed in the silicon which is outside of your premises, right? And it's being processed, and the final output is coming back to you. So now, because the data is moving, of course, there are more moving pieces in this ecosystem. So there, you need to make sure that right from the point at which the data exits your system to where it enters and again receives back the processed information, at all of these stages, it becomes even more important to examine it very thoroughly, use the right set of tools, make sure the auditing is done, and there should be a regular scanning. You cannot just do some changes and or rather do some certification and leave it. It has to be a practice, because let's say the SaaS team has modified certain things and some newer vulnerabilities may have been exposed, while you are imagining that once it is integrated, it's wired up, then it just lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. Yeah. So nor does this security, kind of the safety or security of the system.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. I think the data at rest and data in transit, how do you encrypt and protect is very important. But again, I think just to add to what Saurabh said, I think some of the most common risk that comes in from a SaaS companies or product development stages, which is not designed properly or structured properly or coded properly, could be like DDoS, data breaches, weak APIs, integration, which Saurabh also touched upon later earlier, weak source codes and backdoor entry. So these are some of the things, I've seen people, hackers who are coming from a simple feedback form on a website and then hack the typical databases at the back end, which is not again a front internet facing systems as well.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Nilesh and Saurabh. The next question is, in proactive security monitoring, what type of cases are covered? And can you give some examples?
Can you go ahead with the real-time experience, Varun?
Yeah, I can actually answer it from the SOC perspective. So what happens in proactive security, we not only take care of the alerts that we get on a day-to-day basis, but then we also publish advisories. Right. So what we do is, if we find something in the wild, some vulnerability is already being exploited, then we give that advisory to the customer. We show them that, look, this is what has been going on, and these are the particular resources in your environment that are affected by this. Right. So we should immediately maybe patch them. If the software is no longer required, then you could remove them. Right. And on top of that, what else we do in the proactive security is we do a monthly posture review meeting with the customer, where we ask them all the forward-looking questions. We ask them, what's your plan like? If you're going to do some marketing type of event, then we know that, okay, we're going to receive traffic on this web server. So then we'll be monitoring it more closely, right? So this is a step ahead, ensuring that, we are on our toes and we know what is going to happen and what we can, what we can ensure to beef up the security for the customer.
All right. Thank you for sharing that insight, Varun. So yeah, next question we have, to what depth do you do a gap or risk assessment?
Yeah, I think I answered that on the chat as well. So see, the gap assessment is not a technology gap assessment, right? What we do is we check the technology. We also do the paper-based gap assessment, right? So we'll also interview the stakeholders. We'll ask maybe the HR, what's your joiner policy? What's your leaver policy? We'll ask the IT, what's your password policy, right? And we'll check if there are any gaps as per the best practices on those policies. So the gap assessment is separate for a security. A gap assessment is separate for a control. Accessing your firewall and knowing, if something is wrong in the firewall, some policies are misconfigured. That is control-based security, control-based assessment. But we go into the paper-based assessment also. If some policies are missing, we'll also ask you to add those policies and show the non-conformity for any compliance that you want to match.
Wonderful. So thank you for sharing that, Varun. And if there are any other questions, kindly put it in the chat. We would love to answer those questions. Meanwhile, we'll also be sharing you contact details in case you would want to reach out to the team and connect with them. So that will also be shared on the screen. Yeah, I guess that's it in terms of questions. And I would like to thank once again to all our panelists and speakers. So it has been a wonderful session. Thanks a lot, Saurav and Dorababu, for making time and joining us. Thank you, Nilesh, Sax, and Varun for being part of this and initiating this kind of conversation. Definitely, that needs spreading the awareness, spreading the word, and making sure that security is brought up across the globe as well. So we can see on the screen we have the contact details for Rajat Goel. He is the Deputy Vice President for Cybersecurity and SOC, and Varun Parekh as well. You can reach out to the team, and they will definitely get in touch with you for any assistance required. So thanks a lot once again. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.